Okay.
Welcome to episode 32 of Peace Talk. This is, of course, the Peace Dealer, and I have a special guest. Damn, I forgot to ask before the call, but how do you say your name?
Paolo DiCocco.
Gian Paolo DiCocco. That sounds good.
Yeah. It just runs off the tongue. It rolls off there like butter. You know what I mean? So
Definitely so. So where is that from? Is that what nationality is that name?
Oh, it's Italian, 100% Italian.
Italian.
And it's funny because the last name DiCocco, I think, well, from what I was told, it means from the nut. So, which is really weird because my family basically is nuts, I would like to say. So it kind of runs in the family. But there's actually a town in Italy called Coco. So from Coco means from that town in Italy. So it's interesting.
That is interesting.
That's a little bit about my family background, but we could go into my astrological background too, because there's a little history to that as well.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. Before you mention that, though, where are you based? Where are you at?
Well, I was born and raised in Long Island, New York, my whole life. And just recently, my whole family moved out to Los Angeles, California.
No way.
So, yeah. So we just jumped coasts, and here we are.
Tell me, as a New Yorker, how do you find I can't help but laugh.
Well, I can't help but laugh either. I mean, it's quite a difference, I have to say. Total change of scenery. The weather is absolutely gorgeous here, I have to say. And it's interesting because I feel like I transplanted myself into a whole different mystical arena. Because, in Los Angeles here, there's so many different types of mystics and people who are interested in metaphysics and astrology. So I kind of feel like I'm right at home here. It's interesting.
Yeah, I definitely got that same vibe too. If you could equate New York to a planet and Cali to a planet, how does the astro energies differ to you?
Well, there's a whole field of astrology called Astrocartography, where each location you have certain power lines running through like a particular city. So I know for me in New York, I had my Saturn and Pluto midheaven lines running right through the whole city, which I was like dead on right there. So when you have lines like that, usually that means this is where you're going to meet your destiny. Or with like Pluto on the midheaven, you can have a lot of power struggles with authority. And I know in New York, all the jobs that I held in New York, I really butted heads with authority figures, because I'm really an independent guy, and we'll get into my sun, moon, and ascendant soon, because that actually plays a role in there. I got three.
First question I was going to ask you, actually.
Oh yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Well, before you answer that, I hate to interrupt because you mentioned.
No, go ahead.
You mentioned the glorious field of astrocartography, which I really want to study more. So you said you had Saturn and the midheaven in New York.
Yeah.
Is that just based on your chart, or is that just based on Saturn and the midheaven is the official line through New York?
Well, that's just based on my chart, because everybody's chart, of course, is different. So they're going to have
Venus go through New York based on their chart.
It's possible. They could have like a Venus ascendant crossing line, or even a Venus midheaven crossing line too. It all depends on the chart, and the different latitudes upon which you were born plays a role in where those lines cross or crisscross.
So you have your midheaven and Saturn crossing that, and then in your chart you have Pluto on your midheaven.
Well, I have both Saturn and Pluto conjunct on my midheaven, which and because it's actually a very difficult aspect to have, I gotta say, and we can get into the details of that aspect shortly. But yeah, in New York, I've had a lot of troubles holding down a job. So when I moved to Los Angeles, I now have Mercury conjunct my midheaven. So that could mean, having some kind of speaking career, a teaching career, any career involving mercurial tasks. And on top of that, I have natally Jupiter conjunct Uranus in the 11th house. So moving to Los Angeles, that conjunction became right on my ascendant. So
what lines run over your Los Angeles?
Los Angeles is Mercury conjunct midheaven, and Jupiter conjunct Uranus conjunct my ascendant.
Wow.
So I guess a lot of people would probably see me as wacky, unconventional, rebellious. You know, my Renaissance outfit, people would be like, "Who the hell is that?" You know.
Reminds me of a lot of people in LA.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. You know, and I get a lot of questions too about, you know, why this particular outfit? Why do I wear this hat? Well, I'll let you in on a secret. The hat I bought on Amazon.com for $5.99. I couldn't believe that. Really, really cheap. And with this, I pay like a homage to the old style Renaissance astrologers and all that, you know, the hardcore astrologers, I guess you can say. So
that's what's up.
Yeah.
So, okay. I'm still going to ask your sun, moon, and rising, but before you answer that, I did peruse your page, and I really like, for those of you also, I'll say it again. Oh, love the mug. Love the mug.
I got my own little, let's see, there it is. Like my old brand of merchandise.
That's what it is. I bet you heard, so I know I'm joking. The link to your channel is in the description below, and I like the format of what you do. You know, you're actually applying astrology and giving some predictions here and there. I saw you talk about Donald Trump. I also saw you talk about the astrology of sexual orientation, which
that's interesting. Yeah,
I want to talk to you about that too.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, how would you describe your channel for those viewing right now? And what got you started on it?
Oh my God. Well, you know, it's interesting because, as I told you before, you know, me and holding down a job have always been troublesome. And I blame that on Saturn conjunct Pluto with the midheaven. So I was in like a state of confusion regarding what I should do for a career. And I actually got a career consultation from the Vedic astrologer Kapil Raj. Yeah, it was like a 10-minute consultation. And basically, he suggested that I go into some kind of healing career like Ayurvedic medicine, which actually he was wrong. I have no interest in Ayurvedic medicine, actually. But he also said that a side career that I can have is by going on social media like what he does, and he specifically said that, and doing astrology videos and things like that. So, and I've always wanted to do this before he even mentioned that. That's awesome. So about a week after that, I started putting together a couple of videos, and the astrology of sexual orientation was one of my first videos. So yeah, that's like an hour and 20 minutes. I mean, I think it's a really good lecture, very informative. And I came up with that whole theory of how to see it in a chart because I totally believe it. I've seen it time and time again, even by going through, people of the LGBT community, their charts, looking it online, and I see these different patterns, and it always revolves around like the 5th, 8th, and 12th houses, you know, because the 5th house is the house of like romance, casual sex, quote unquote hookups, I guess. Then you have the 8th house of transformation and real deep sexual intimacy, and then the 12th house of spirituality, compassion, Neptune's house, and that represents like the whole creative energy source. So it's like when two people of the same sex meet, unconsciously what's going on is that they're connecting with that same pool of energy. You know, at least that's how I've seen it in astrology charts and things like that. So
I know my sister had simplified it. She had said astrology seems to support homosexuality just due to masculine signs getting along and feminine signs getting along. And you only get conflict once you get masculine and feminine trying to work together.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. You know, they say opposites attract, but also opposites can easily repel as well. So
I believe that too.
it's like there's a reason that they're actually opposites to an extent. So yeah.
So what is your sun, moon, and rising? I want to guess Virgo. I think there's Virgo in there, but I'm not sure.
Well, you're right about that because I have Mercury in Virgo.
Aha. Okay.
So it's Mercury in Virgo. That's in my 8th house.
You're a Libra.
I am a Libra.
Yes.
Yes. In fact, my birthday is less than 3 weeks. It's September 24th.
Oh, nice.
So I'm like, this is a September to remember here, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I'm a Sun Libra at 1 degree. I'm a Moon Aries at the critical degree of 29. So that's like a potent moon, really potent.
Yeah.
That's gotten me into trouble a lot of times, but I don't regret it. And I'm a rising Capricorn at 9 degrees.
Rising Capricorn. All right. Yeah. So I love this already because you clearly have a great combination of Cardinal energy. Where was your Cap rising again?
You mean the degree?
Yeah.
9 degrees.
9 degrees. That's like right on my Uranus, actually. But
oh wow, that's good because we're good at discussing this stuff, you know, astrology and all that. So it makes a lot of sense. Right?
But yeah, I like. Can you explain how you have to balance and deal with these cardinal energies?
Yeah.
And then also, could you explain how? Because right now, Venus and Jupiter is on your sun, bro. Like you.
It is. Well, not only that, but you got the Venus, Mercury, Jupiter conjunction. You got that triple planet conjunction going on for everybody.
Like right on you.
Yeah, it's right on my sun. This is great. And it's funny because I just accepted a job offer recently. Now, with astrology, I treat this as a hobby, but I do need a full-time job, you know, to pay the bills and all that stuff. So I start tomorrow night. It's an overnight shift doing pathology work in a lab. So, you know, Scorpio midheaven, we love doing research and laboratory work. So that's going to pay the bills for me. But, and I'll just do this astrology thing on the side. I mean, I apologize. I have only like 20-something videos on my channel and just a little over 100 subscribers. But I hope to cement myself with those videos, you know, in the YouTube community. But we'll see what happens.
Recently, right?
Wait, what was that?
Recently, right?
Yeah, I started late December of 2015. So less than a year, yeah. But back to your question about the sun, moon, and rising thing. So yeah, I'm all cardinal energy, and that's been difficult. I mean, a lot of people look up to me as a leader because that's what cardinal energy is all about. But I've also intimidated a lot of people. Like it's actually difficult for me to make friends. And in a way, you know, I have Scorpio on the 11th house cusp. So with that, I kind of see like death of friendships because people would come into my life and then they would easily leave without any reason or anything like that. Like, I'm like, you know, why the hell am I not hearing from this person anymore? So it's interesting how that has an effect. But it's kind of a little difficult to balance those 3 elements. I'm glad I have air, fire, and earth there. And I've heard people say, oh, you must be lacking in water. And that's kind of true because I only have Saturn in Scorpio as the only water planet, a planet in a water sign there. But I think that's rather powerful because Saturn is the chart ruler for me because I'm a rising Capricorn. So I think that Scorpio element is really big with me. And I'm an 8th house personality because I have Mercury, Venus, Mars, and the sun basically in the 8th house. Now the sun is right on my 9th house cusp. So I'm like
right before it?
Right, it's actually right on it directly, but it's on the 8th house side by like a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess I could classify myself as a lot of Scorpio. There's a lot of Scorpio energy. And with Leo on my 8th house cusp, that gives me like a very fiery nature about the occult and astrology. Like I enjoy exposing secrets. And that's my astrological philosophy because I like to get down and dirty. You know, I like to go right deep into the unconscious and make it conscious so that people can better deal with it. That's what I think, you know.
Great.
And a lot of people don't like me probing into their privacy, but some people do get a lot of healing and transformation for that. So it's kind of like 50-50. But I'm willing to take a chance and just do it because that's my style, you know.
And you have that power. You can clearly see it. Like it's very directional. I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
How I think you'd be the best person to answer this question because in December, there's going to be like a T-square of death. Pluto's going to be like 16 degrees. Uranus will be 20 degrees in Aries. And then Jupiter will be 20 degrees in Libra.
So, well, we're still going to go through that Pluto-Uranus square, right? I think it's still here.
Yeah, it's still there.
Oh, geez. Well, that's probably going to have a global effect on something. I think governments are still going through a lot of turmoil and trouble. I don't think we're going to see... you know,
Jupiter will expand the drama and conflict.
It just may on a world scale, I would say, and I think quite a few economies are going to take a hit too. You know, so I don't think we're done with that. But that's what Pluto in Capricorn is all about. It's about transforming the establishment because it's just not working anymore. And then you have Donald Trump coming along, and I consider him like he's the bulwark of revolution. Like you could just see it. He's inciting this revolution. And that's how he's connecting with the mass consciousness because the people are feeling it. Yeah. So he's really riding on the coattails of the people's sentiments, You know, and he's got, what does he have? He's got Mars and Pluto, I believe, in the 12th house. So he is capable of undergoing tremendous transformation of the collective unconscious, because that's what the 12th house represents to me, is the collective unconscious.
Very true.
So,
yeah. Yeah, Trump has a glorious chart. Actually, that was the next question I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Given the elections, you know, it's going to happen in Scorpio season, which will give Hillary an unprecedented advantage. But, you know, Trump does have his North Node on his sun in the 10th, and then he's going to
right.
transit. Like, I almost think Trump might actually win. I feel like Hillary has a greater pull now, but I don't.
Yeah, well, the thing is, because I have this excellent book, and I highly suggest everybody get it. It's the Rulership book by Rex E. Bills. And it's basically a compendium of so many different things, from locations to items to places, what have you. And they show you exactly what signs rule what houses rule what. It's fantastic. And elections are ruled by, what is it, the 12th house, Neptune, and I think Uranus.
Really?
Yeah, the 12th house and Neptune cover elections. That's what the book said.
I would have never, ever in a million years even thought that.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing is that they don't give a rationale as to why certain planets rule certain things. Otherwise, you would have like a huge damn book. But yeah, but I can kind of see that in a way, because you know, the 12th house deals with the hidden aspects of people, and I think it's their like when they go to vote, they're basically swayed by the politicians. And, you know, that Neptunian house gives that nebulous, watery feeling to connect with, I guess, these politicians or something. So it could be fanaticism, because Neptune rules fanaticism.
Definitely.
So I could see that connection there.
I can see the connection between the 12th house and rigged elections, for sure.
Yeah, well, that's another thing, because let's say if Hillary wins, I think there would be an uproar, and I think the election would be rigged. Now, there's been a lot of talk about in astrological circles about what her correct birth time is, and and I don't know. To me, that seems like that's a reflection of her character. Like, I don't know. To me, she seems very devious. I mean, she's a Sun Scorpio in the 12th house. I believe that's based on her 8:02 a.m. birth time. So a Sun in Scorpio in the 12th house, that could be extremely devious.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, really. I mean, yeah, what were you going to say?
Very nebulous.
Very nebulous. And a Sun Scorpio is already in a water element, and then you top that off into a water house.
Yes.
So that kind of makes it makes the Scorpio even more nebulous, even more manipulative too. So that's an easy manipulator of the collective unconscious.
Yeah.
So, and then she's got this, I think, a triple conjunction in the 9th house of law and philosophy. So even though she may not appear, I think she's a rising Gemini, correct me if I'm wrong. So she may not appear to be so authoritative, but deep down in her mind, she's like a dictator. I believe that.
She would have to be a rising Sagittarius if she was the 12th house. But
would she?
Yeah, but maybe you said there was a time dispute, so I guess the time of birth has her as a Gemini, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So she's either a Sag or a Gemini, right? Basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. I could probably pull up her chart, actually, even though a rising, I don't know where the rising Gemini came from. But actually, let me do this really quickly. But yeah, I mean, she's got a lot of 12th house energy. But the thing is, see, I think Trump is going to win the election because his progressed chart is absolutely excellent. He's got a lot of 10th house planets in his progressed chart currently. And they are, and also I believe he's got Neptune in the 12th house of his progressed chart, which is excellent because that gives him a lot of 12th house energy, which, you know, elections are ruled by that, the 12th house. So, and that Neptune is aspecting his 10th house progressed planet. So that's why I think he's got the progressed chart of an election winner.
Exactly, which is what has me tripping out because, like, mentally, logically, I feel like, I don't know, but intuitively, I feel like he has some Trump cards, and then I feel like Hillary will get hurt really bad by people wanting to vote, you know, Gary Johnson or Jill, you know, and then the Democrats kind of get separated by third-party votes and everything. Which could,
mm-hmm.
I don't know. And then
Yeah.
could be some upsets that happen that just damage somebody's campaign. I feel Hillary has
Right. It could be. It could be. I mean, I think both sides are going to take a lot of heat, but we'll see what happens. Oh, and by the way, yeah, it's Hillary's not a Gemini rising. She's a Scorpio rising, which makes sense because a sun in Scorpio in the 12th house, you're not going to have a Gemini rising. That's too far away from the Zodiac wheel.
Cool.
So,
Okay, so it's like the late Scorpio rising.
Yes, she is basically 22 degrees.
All right.
So. And the ruler of her ascendant is in the 9th house. Okay, Pluto is in the 9th house, which is conjunct Mars. So that's like, oh boy.
Too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what is your opinion on Uranus transiting Aquarius and the rise of third-party campaigns? Because it's
the rise,
like getting there, but
yeah, I mean Uranus and Aquarius. That's a big time revolutionary aspect, especially for Uranus to go through. So that could clearly explain the rise of, first of all, Donald Trump, because he had a sudden rise to political greatness now from being a businessman. So, but also, if you've noticed, I mean, Aquarius rules over astrology. That's the sign that rules over astrology. So with Uranus and Aquarius, I've noticed that there is a resurgence of a ton of YouTube astrologers. You know, I've noticed that. I'm just like taking a look. I'm like, oh my God, wow. So, I mean, that's a good thing to see.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I messed up. I didn't mean Uranus and Aquarius, because that's true. It's in the natal chart. And when you said, I meant Pluto, when Pluto leaves Capricorn and enters Aquarius.
When Pluto leaves Capricorn and enters Aquarius, well, I think we're going to see more scientific innovations happen.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's going to be a transformation of science, because Aquarius is science and technology as well. So that's definitely going to be have an impact on that, and medicine. That's where I see that mostly, and also, well, that could also lead to some additional metaphysical or occult figures coming into play too, revolutionary figures particularly.
Interesting.
That's how I see that. But hopefully by the time Pluto exits Capricorn, all the government, economy, religion stuff will be winding down. So
that's theoretically, hopefully, what will happen.
Yeah. But I notice sometimes it takes maybe like an additional 10 years of activity before it dies down. I've noticed that too. Like Pluto in Capricorn, the last time that happened was the American Revolution. And still you had like wars, like the War of 1812, things like that. So it'll probably, I consider that like the shadow period.
Okay. Like the first degrees of Pluto into Aquarius.
Yeah. So that's basically that.
So borrowing back on your discussion of sexual orientation, what would be like 3, because I know there's a lot you talk about, but what are like the top 3 things or indicators that you could use to determine?
The top 3 indicators. Well, there's so many indicators. There's not one indicator. I got to make that especially clear. Because a lot of people would think, oh, if you have Venus square Uranus, oh, that's got to be, you know, some kind of warped out there, crazy affectionate love style that's not conventional. So it's easy for people to think that could lead to bisexuality or homosexuality, but you really have to take the chart in a holistic way. So certain aspects, there's usually, you know, Neptune or Uranus in the 5th, 8th, or 12th houses, because Neptune and Uranus are both the significators of same-sex attraction. And then you have to pay attention to the rulers, like the ruler of the 5th and the 8th, the ruler of the 8th and the 12th, and vice versa. If you see any rulers in those houses, that's another indication. But let's say if you don't have Uranus or Neptune in the 5th, 8th, or 12th house, and if you don't have those rulers and houses, you then have to look to see if those 3 rulers are aspecting one another, okay, by any major aspect, by like a square, sextile, trine, this and that, because I've seen a lot of cases where that is the case, and they are attracted to the same sex. But I will admit that a lot more research has to be done. I should actually make this a formal astrological research endeavor, where I would collect, let's say, 200 charts and write up exactly what I find in them. So,
and honestly, I think that's the most exciting direction that we're headed to as astrologers. Actual clinical research proving these. There's a scientist that had written a dissertation on why astrology cannot be viewed as unscientific anymore. And he was talking about how back in the Freudian era and even till now, like, there have actually been experiments done, you know, I would say clinically testing over like at least 10,000 of people. And you were able to prove that, you know, the rising sign in your midheaven caused a lot of similarities, which I thought was, and he was saying based on that, you know, this is one reason why you actually have to take this serious. And it's not really just a pseudo-scientific concept. But
astrology is all based on mathematics too. Even the ancient Egyptians were excellent mathematicians, especially to build those pyramids so exactly like that. So because there is a lot of mathematics involved in the construction of the astrology chart and the motion of the planets and the orbs and all this, that's what makes me believe in it too. And people should take it seriously. They really should.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just kind of more astounded at how, you know, that the time of birth could reveal so much. Like, given that it could be off just a minute or so, but you still have it in it.
Well, the time of birth is so critical because I personally will not interpret a natal chart unless the birth time is accurate, like really accurate, because that sets up the nature of the houses. If you're off by 10 to 15 minutes, that makes such a huge difference.
Such a huge difference. Yeah. It's not as fun to read a chart without the time of birth too.
I know. And it's funny because, you know, I go into these Facebook astrology groups, and I used to post a lot in them, but I don't anymore. Very rarely would I. And I see people, they're interpreting charts with like no birth time. I mean, maybe they think it's fun to, I guess, interpret a chart like, what if it was this time? But I just see that as a wasted effort. It's a waste of brain cells to try to interpret something that's not accurate.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm actually I forgot the word, but I like how, you know, without a birth time, you could still give an accurate enough reading. But the dimension added with the time of birth is just unreal. Like, it just.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, there's that whole process of rectification, you know, where they go back into the person's history and past in order to construct a birth time. Like, they would use certain events and see what planets were in effect during those events, and they would just come up with almost an exact birth time. And I don't know how they can do that, really. I mean, you know, are you familiar with rectification? Do you know about that process?
I'm not too familiar with it, but I know some people who practice astrocosmophysics, and they had done some kind of method of that for me. They had asked me that, but the way they were rectifying it was saying that my actual time of birth was not right. So the person had asked me if I had received any injuries before I was 8 years old. Did I break my hand? Did I do anything? And the only thing that was significant was the stitches that I had on my eye. And so he said that that is a significator of Sagittarius in your 8th house. Oh, I'm sorry, of Aries in your 8th house, because that's an injury on the head.
On the head, right.
Which actually makes me a Virgo rising instead of a Taurus rising. So
interesting.
Yeah, I think.
Well, I definitely see the Earth. You're definitely a rising Earth. I could see that.
Yeah, no, I definitely like the method. I don't personally agree. Like, I verify my time of birth is actually accurate. Like, I think I'm more a Taurus rising than a Virgo rising, but I still think that indicator is still useful in some sense. Maybe not for determining the true time of birth, but it was pretty revealing to me, like just how you could kind of tell, how you could kind of gauge certain injuries you even get before,
Yeah.
But I haven't really gone into any like legit hardcore rectification. That's still fascinating.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think, like, just taking being born in the United States, for example, I don't think that there are some hospitals that actually don't record the birth time on the birth certificate. So I've heard about that too. And I think there should be some kind of law. I would like a national law to come out that says all hospitals have to have a required birth time. I mean, if when there are death certificates, practically all death certificates have time of death on there. So, like, why not time of birth?
Yeah.
You know, so which we can go into death charts too, because that's also fascinating. Some people think the time of death, the chart drawn up at the time of death, could indicate your next life or reincarnation.
That would make sense. I really do believe in the sense of like when you die and someone else gets born in the same moment. Very karmic. What do you feel about death charts? I know it could get really challenging to try and analyze. You know, this happened. You know, this was squaring when he died, so this may be a significator of death. But yeah, it's definitely it's definitely interesting. I was going to say something right now, but I just
I got to say I like forensic astrology a lot. Like I did the forensic astrology of Antonin Scalia. So I mean, there were rumors about him like being suffocated with a pillow, and I actually saw that in the chart. Yeah, I just direct everybody to watch that video because it's interesting, and I really want to look into the criminal nature of people and all this. You know, what makes people a serial killer or a pedophile or some kind of psychopath, this and that. But back to seeing death in a natal chart, like predicting how you're going to die, manner of death. That's borderline unethical, maybe. I mean, it's really up in the air. I'm not even sure if it's ethical or not to tell somebody, oh, how you're going to die. You know, because you could clearly see that in the chart where the 8th house is the manner of death, whereas the 6th house is basically immediate health issues that you're dealing with. And those could contribute to the manner of death as well. So I always see like Pisces on the 8th house cusp, for example. You could have death by drowning. I mean, that's probably a rare thing. But Pisces also rules drugs. So you could have some kind of, maybe you could overdose. Yeah, overdose or even just medication. Maybe the wrong medication a doctor could prescribe to you, and that could have serious effects on your health to the point of death. So things like that. But also you have to pay attention to the ruler of the 8th house as well and where that's placed, and the dispositorships. Like I like to use rulers of houses and dispositorships in all my interpretations because that adds a lot of flavor to it.
Definitely.
And I got to say, I really don't use asteroids in my analysis. You know, I consider asteroids to be hemorrhoids, basically, because it's like you're adding all of these different little rocky bodies to the chart, and the chart can look so clumped. It's like you're adding a ton of spices to a salad, and you're not going to see like the green of the leaves anymore. You know, the basic structure of the natal chart. So I basically stay away from asteroids, and I use just the basic planets, really.
I feel like asteroids are really important after you've gotten a really, really firm foundation of your basic chart. I can speak from experience. Yeah. They're accurate, you know, if they're really on an orb that's like close enough to a planet, it's significant, but they're just like little spices. It could sometimes throw you off if you focus more on the asteroid than the actual planet that, you know, holds more significance. Sometimes, some people, asteroids, they don't even really apply, even if it's conjunct, whereas some they resonate more with, I've noticed.
Yeah, but I mean, like you said, you have to have a firm grasp of the chart first, and then you could add an asteroid here and there just for the added flavor.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely true. Yeah. What do you feel about people who die in the same season they were born? I almost feel like it's like it could be irrelevant, but if they
that's an interesting question. People who die in the same season that they're born,
like a graduation or something.
Well, I was going to say perhaps they resonate with the overall temperament and environment of the season. You know, like how they say winter people can be kind of cold or unemotionally feeling, and maybe they just connect with that, and who knows? They just probably die in the same season, you know?
Oh, and I actually meant too, like, for example, someone born Cancer season and then dies Cancer season. Like, I meant to say someone who dies on their birthday.
Wow, that's got to be rare, though.
Yeah, it's not really that common. But
yeah.
I always see that, like, I don't know if that's a coincidence. You know, like, you died a couple days before or after your birthday. There's really no explanation for it, but it's just something that.
Well, I don't know what the significance of that would be, really.
Yeah.
You know, you die on the same day that you're born. I personally don't know anybody in my life that's, you know, died on their birthday. You know, but that's interesting. So, what else do we have? My mind is just drawing a blank here. We just covered so many topics from, you know, astrological placements to death. But you know,
Libra people.
Yeah, that's right. But I gotta say, you know, I've always been fascinated by the concept of death because I went to school to study pathology, the study of disease, and so I was trained to do autopsies. I've seen autopsies, and it really doesn't bother me because it's just fascinating to me. I see it with the scientific lens, and that's Mercury and Virgo in the 8th house, critically dissecting on the deepest level possible. You know, and that's how I see the birth chart too, because, you know, when a pathologist diagnoses disease, they use the microscope and they first focus on low power, and then they go on into high power to see all the nuts and bolts of what the cells are doing, you know, if there's cancer, all this stuff. And that's exactly how I look at a birth chart, because to me, a birth chart is a map of the soul. And I'm here to dissect the soul, all the bits and pieces, and see what's going on. So I first look at the birth chart under low power to get a general feel for the elements, the general aspects, and then I zoom in under high power to really focus on the specifics, the specific house placement, the specific rulers of the houses and all that. So that's how I approach a birth chart.
Sweet.
Yeah. So everything is connected. Nothing is a coincidence. You know?
Very fascinating concept, not the easiest to accept, but that's definitely true, especially so let's play a game.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna take turns asking each other questions.
All right.
And yeah, you'll ask me a question first, I'll answer it, then I ask you a question, you answer it, and then we'll just do it 3 times.
Okay, and I guess we're keeping this astrologically related.
Any question. It could be any.
All right. Well, my question is, how did you personally get into astrology? Are there any experiences, any aha moments that made you say, "Oh yes, I want to go into this"?
It was more of a hunger, because I was just searching for the truth at that time. I was at the tail end of going hard for Jesus. I've been a Christian my whole life, but like 2011, 2012, I was like, you know, I don't want to be a lukewarm Christian. I want to be a real Christian. I really started studying the religion. I started gaining more doubt though when I studied the etymology of the Bible, not the etymology, but like, you know, discovering about it being edited and rewritten, and then really getting into how, you know, inerrant it is. And I just started looking for answers. And then my sister had introduced me to this spiritual worker who actually ended up being a fraud. But he opened my mind up to these different spiritual practices. He actually didn't believe in astrology either. But around that time, I had for the first time ever started watching horoscopes and looking into that. And then I got a reading from the Leo King and from Christopher Witecki, and that was my first exposure to a birth chart. My mind was completely blown. And ironically, this was all happening when Jupiter was transiting my first house and leaving my 12th. So that was why, because of, you know, first house transit, it was breaking out. This is what I meant to do. But yeah, that was more or less the thought process behind it all. Once I got the reading, I was like, wow, I didn't even know this was possible. I have to study this. And
and then it's like you delve into all the books. That's what happened to me. Yeah, well, you know what? I might as well. You could ask me the same question because I don't think we covered that. Right?
No,
like how I got into it. Exactly.
I asked you in the beginning, but I don't think you fully answered it. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, it was in my early 20s, and I happened to look at, those general newspaper horoscopes. And I was like, what is this bullshit? Because in a way, that's how I see newspaper horoscopes, as real BS. Because everybody is different. There are going to be definite days where you're like, okay, this just does not apply to me whatsoever. And it's true, because it may not apply. It's all based on your chart. So because of that, I went on the internet and I just started researching and researching and researching. And I noticed that there's a hell of a lot more than just a generic 1 to 2 line newspaper horoscope. Now, I don't mean to bash newspaper horoscopes, because I think their main, the good thing about them is that it keeps people interested in astrology. So that's a good thing. That's what I think their purpose is. But after that, I mean, I just completely went nuts on astrology. I got so many books. I still have an extensive library today. And where that urge came from, like what exactly caused me to act like that at, a newspaper horoscope, it's fascinating. And I think because I have so many 8th house placements, that's just buried in the unconscious. Because the 8th house to me also is the personal unconscious. The 12th house is the collective unconscious. The 8th house is the personal unconscious. So I had all those 8th house occult. Huh?
How about the 4th house?
The 4th house is also an unconscious thing. I've read that it is
the personal unconscious, like the 4th house is the first level and the 8th house is the deeper level.
Yeah, because there are multiple levels to the unconscious: personal, collective, and I think probably the 4th house would be the subconscious, right below the consciousness. So I would classify that as subconscious.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
but
conscious, then unconscious, and then the 12th.
Right, and then collective unconscious. I've also heard, because the 12th house is the collective unconscious, the 6th house is opposite of that. I've heard that the 6th house is the collective consciousness.
The 6th house, not the 11th house?
Yeah, no, I've read that the 6th house, and this was in a book by Karen Hamaker Zondag. She was a follower of Carl Jung, the analytical psychologist, and she wrote extensively about psychological concepts in the houses, and she said it's the collective consciousness. I'm just putting that out there. That's just an idea. But I could see how the 11th house is, it is collective, group-minded.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
Yeah. So, but what was I going to say? Yeah, so back to the 8th house. All those planets in my personal unconscious, it just takes something to trigger that, and then they bubble up to the surface. So that's my rationale for how everything got started, basically.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Who goes next, I guess, to ask? Is it me?
Yeah. This will be your second question.
All right. In your chart, what do you consider to be the most difficult aspect, like the hardest aspect to deal with?
Oh, great question.
Yeah.
All right. The 3 main difficult aspects, in order for me to answer it, because it usually changes. It used to be my Saturn conjunct Moon in Capricorn, but that's actually one of my favorite aspects.
Yeah. I've heard that could lead to depression, like real depressive.
It does. It doesn't lead to depression, though. It almost makes me melancholic, and I kind of feed off and like the depression. It's weird, very weird. Because my Moon is also loosely conjunct Neptune and Uranus, and the 9th house cusp. But the closest conjunction is to Saturn, and it basically just makes me cut off all emotion. I kind of prefer it that way, which is really weird. Yeah. But I've kind of learned that because it's in Capricorn, as I get older, I appreciate it way more and more. So now what ends up being the most challenging aspect, I would have to say it's a tie between my Venus in the 12th house in Taurus opposite Pluto in the 6th in Scorpio, and then my Mars in Aries square my Uranus in Capricorn. I think that Mars is the most challenging because my biggest issue in life is always impatience, and the Mars makes a T-square with Jupiter, conjunct Chiron in Cancer, and also with Uranus and Neptune and the Moon there. So I would say that's my most challenging aspect. Whenever I feel that impatience, my Mars in Aries just wants to do it now. And even though internally my feminine Y side is like, you need patience, you need time, and really I'm just could care less. So that always gets me into trouble whenever I'm not as patient as I should be.
Right.
The Venus aspect is just me getting lost in imagination and
Well, no, I was actually going to do a video on Venus in the 12th house. Like that's one of my next future videos to do. I'm fascinated by that aspect, and I always hear, Venus is in the 12th house of secrets. So I've always heard of secret love affairs or not exposing your affection right away, or your sensual love style or whatever it may be.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I'm like not a fan of PDA at all. And because I have the Moon and Cap, like I could like you, and my Gemini and Mars, the impatience, I'll just tell you, right? But you won't necessarily feel or see any affection from me because I withhold all of that. Like, it's in a special place. I preserve the love for a sacred time and space, which is in a 12th house environment, which is counterintuitive, especially with the Pluto opposition, because I always feel that tension.
What's Pluto opposing again?
Pluto's opposing my Venus in the 12th.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty powerful. You could have like a love transformation or something. You could really transform people with your love thing, even though it could be difficult because it's an opposition.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. It's very difficult. I think because of its presence in the 12th, it's not an excuse as to why I haven't been in a relationship, but yeah, I've never really been in a real relationship. I know it has a part to do with it. The opposition influences me to be really lazy. So I know that's a part of it. It's not the opposition's fault that I'm lazy. It's my responsibility. But.
So wait, so you've never had a relationship?
No, I mean, I've had like a girlfriend here and there in high school, but that lasted maybe like a couple weeks, but never like a real relationship before.
Well, we're similar like that because I really haven't had that either. And it's funny because in my chart, you said you have Moon conjunct Saturn, right?
Yeah.
I've got Moon opposition Saturn.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting because my 7th house, the descendant, is in Cancer. And the ruler of that is the Moon, which is opposing both Saturn and Pluto. So I think that could mean, death of relationships or something like that. Like that could hinder me from being married.
Yeah, it's a very powerful emotional disconnect. Especially with someone like me and you, it's not really that we are unable to connect. I feel it's more a willingness, like we just would rather not. I don't know.
Yeah. But at the same time, speaking of the most difficult aspect, I think it's Moon opposition Pluto for me because my emotions could be rather turbulent sometimes, and I show that because I'm a Moon in Aries, so it just like comes out like boom, 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 And
opposite Pluto.
Yeah, it's opposite Pluto because I've got the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, and both of those are opposing my Moon.
That's very different.
So, yeah, it is.
And then in the 29th degree of Aries, that could be very volatile too. Like it's powerful.
It could be. I mean, I've never had any physical violent outbursts, thank God, and I think that's because
that's great.
Yeah, because I have a Sun Libra too, so I think that's keeping me, more peaceful.
Putting it in check.
Yeah,
that's really good.
Yeah.
My question for you would actually be, what is your favorite house of astrology and why?
My favorite house of astrology and why?
2 houses.
2 houses. Oh wow. Well, I know the 8th house is definitely one. The 8th house, actually, that is my personal favorite house. I mean, it's mysterious. There's, it deals with death and also sex on a very intimate level, and those are a lot of taboo topics that a lot of people don't want to discuss. Yeah. And I'm the type to just delve right in there and take it apart, really dissect it. Even though the 8th house also rules other people's resources and some investments and other financial things, I don't really pay attention to that aspect. I mean, I will interpret it from a financial perspective as well, because it's opposite the second house of income. But there's a lot more juicier things like that, even criminal activity, criminality, things like that. So that's my first favorite house. The second favorite house, oh, good question. I mean, I could say the 12th, because there's a lot of secrets in that house too. But I think it's a tie between the 12th house and the 9th house, because I see the 9th house as optimism. It's a house of expansion, and it's a house of higher thinking. So it really gets my mental juices going, especially from a philosophical standpoint.
Okay.
So that serves my, I guess you could say, I'm a sapiosexual, somebody who's attracted to high intelligence and things like that. So me and 9th house personalities, or somebody with a lot of 9th house placements, really get along.
Okay. Great. Yeah, I like the 8th and 12th too. I'm fascinated with those houses.
Yeah.
I would say it's my favorite, but I think I'm just fascinated because I don't understand it like I want to.
Yeah, well, that's it, and I don't think anybody can really fully comprehend either of them. So it's an endless search of understanding, really.
True that, definitely.
Yeah. So, boom.
So this is your last question.
Okay. My last question to you.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, geez. God, there's just so many things we could possibly talk about. Oh, my God. And, you know, me as a Libra, I don't like to stop socializing either. So, what do I think about astrologically? Or what would be a good question to finally ask you? That's the thing. God, I'm drawing a blank.
No rush.
Yeah, I know. We've got all the time. It's Labor Day, by the way. So,
nice.
you know, it's very interesting how we could actually hold an interview on a holiday.
Yeah.
God. You know what? Maybe ask me another one. I'll come back to you.
All right, that's no problem. Let's see. The last question I have for you is the question I make sure I ask everyone.
Oh, actually, wait! I got it. What are some future projects that you're going to be doing on your channel? I'm just very curious about that, because I keep up on your daily illuminations and all that. But do you have any? I guess
I used to. That's a really good question. I used to actually have a. When I had first started the channel, I made videos on what happens if your Venus is in this sign, what happens if your Mars is in this sign. And a lot of people, I'm finding out, really loved it. And I had erased them all because I was just in front of my webcam. So that was a horrible mistake. I shouldn't have erased it. But that's the current project that I'm focusing on. The stage I'm at in my channel is I want to provide all the content that you could search into Google and find. So if you want to know what this asteroid means, if you want to know what Mars in your 6th house means, you can find it for free on my YouTube channel. That's basically the project I'm working on. I want to reshoot it with my better camera, add more creativity to it, and then do a project for tarot, palmistry, and
I love the tarot too. It's fantastic.
Oh, great. Yeah, I don't know why we're in the tarot, but that's awesome. What's your favorite tarot card, if you don't mind my asking?
My favorite tarot card is the Hermit.
Oh, that's my birth card.
It really is. Well, actually, it's mine too. It's mine too, because September 24th, 1983, all adds up to the number 9.
Oh, you're like that number 9. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the best. Yeah. We are the philosophers and the healers in numerology.
The coaches.
That's right. Yeah, because I like the Hermit because he's shining that light. It's like the beacon of light that could open up other people's eyes, you know, through education. So I definitely see him as a leader rather than a follower. Yeah. So we are leaders. Yeah.
And very unique and individual. But yeah, that's where that's the projects I want to focus on. I used to have this thing called the Age of Aquarius reports. I want to bring that too. It kind of like delineates the 12 signs into a production cast. So Taurus is the producer, Aquarius wrote the script, then you have Leo is the lead role, and Libra is the supporting role, and then Aries is the villain. And then I had made it again in front of the webcam thank y'all. People loved it, but I want to bring it back and make it, you know, more creative and better productive. I mean, better.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are what I plan to do. I've been slacking. I brought back the Lilith series, but I'm gonna get off my butt and really work on these. So the last question I have for you is, what are your 3 favorite zodiac signs, and then what are the 3 zodiac signs that give you the most challenge?
3 favorite zodiac signs. I would say I love Leo. I really love Leo because, you know, I've got a Venus-Mars conjunction in Leo. Sun, Libra, Moon, Aries. I always get along with Leos very well. So that's number 1. Number 2, I like Aquarius very much because I see them as very wacky, very smart, extremely smart. They're capable of like pulling these things out of the air. And I'm like, where the hell do they come up with this stuff? So I like that they're very unconventional with their thought process. And I love unconventional thinkers. And then I would have to say there's an earth sign. I do like Taurus because they're very, very sensible, very sensual, pleasurable. And I love their persistence and tenacity. It's really attractive to me. My 3 worst zodiac signs, definitely Scorpio. I don't like Scorpios whatsoever. And I did give a a video on the most hated zodiac sign, Moon in Scorpio, which that got a lot of responses. That got, you know, it's like 15 likes, 18 dislikes. You know what? I don't care. I mean, 50-50. I don't care. If I gain fame or notoriety for that, I don't care which type. But I had to say what I had to say. And I think there's a lot of conflict between me and Scorpios because I have a heavy 8th house. I've got Pluto on the midheaven. So really, I have a lot of Scorpionic activity. And I think that competes with natural Sun Scorpios. That's just my own theory. What else is another one? I got to add a little Pisces in there. I mean, that could be 50-50. And I appreciate Pisces for their spirituality and compassion. But there are some times where what turns me off about Pisces people is that they can let their emotions get the best of them, and they can be so effusively gushy and sentimental that to me that's kind of like, ew. You know, it's like, I don't know why. Yeah, that's just something that it's like, ooh, it's like this goo, this jelly that kind of comes over me, and I'm like, I'm trying to pick it off me. I'm like, get off! Your water is just overtaking me. Yeah. And the 3rd sign, geez, what's the 3rd sign? Oh, Virgo. I'm sorry.
I was waiting for you to say that.
Virgo. I gotta say, and I've noticed that. Well, I gotta say this. I've noticed that the Virgos that I've encountered, they could be really money hungry because they're an Earth sign, and they're also the sign of the harvest, so they're trying to accumulate as much as possible. I could be wrong on that. I don't know if other people have witnessed that, but that's what I've witnessed. And they could also be so critical over the stupidest shit. Yeah. Pardon my French.
No, they are.
And I'm like, why are you worrying over this? Why are you fretting over this? Just stop it. So I think about, like, where does that come from about their personality? I still don't know to this day.
They're the cosmic killjoys in the movie critic. I mean, I just come to learn it's necessary. They're my 5th house, so they're colored with love. Like, I could see all the stuff that people hate about Virgo, I kind of accept. But the reason why this is just so amazing to me, this is episode 32.
Yeah, my age right now, by the way, very significant.
That's awesome. Yeah. You're turning 33 or you're turning 32?
Yeah, 33 is that master number, so I hope it's a good one. So I'm turning 33 in 2 Saturdays, the 24th.
And Jupiter will be in your sign. That's amazing.
That's a good thing, you know. And plus, as I said, I got this excellent full-time job. It's going to pay me really well. So I think that was a little gift from the cosmos. So
that's what's up. Yeah, man. This is 32. Yeah, that's a really good gift. That's 32 episodes. I think there's only 2 episodes of people I interviewed who didn't put Virgo on their shit list. Like every single other person put Virgo as like.
Wow. I got to delve into your videos and actually find out, you know, why they listed that as the worst or hated zodiac sign.
it had a lot to do with the unnecessary criticism.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. Oh.
So this was a really great conversation. Thank you so much again for joining me.
You're welcome.
Before we leave, though, do you have any last word of advice for aspiring astrologers, spiritualists, creative artists who would love to do this? And how can people reach you for a reading or just to talk or just to contact you?
Well, first of all, I got to say, never give up. Always be persistent. Always have an open mind, endless curiosity, because the stars do portray an endless amount of knowledge. You could do this for a lifetime and still never really feel satisfied about what you learn. And there's so much more to learn. So they should all keep their heads up, aim to the sky, but also be grounded at the same time. Okay, so that's a very important piece of advice. So I guess you guys can find me. I've got a Facebook page, Gian Paolo DiCocco. Twitter is @AstroGianPaolo. And, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I've only got a little over 100 subscribers, so I hope to build that up a little bit. But for me, I mean, even if I have one subscriber, I'm satisfied. As long as I can transform or change somebody's life, one person's life, that's all I need, So there you have it.
Once again, man, and make sure you subscribe to him. You'll definitely like his videos. Link in the description box below. And
all right.
Until next episode, y'all.